Hi, everyone. I just want to give a little bit of a overview of what happened with my report and what was stated inside about Blink. I apologize for the format and the structure of it. I just happen to be a little bit busy, and it's not always so easy to have some time to sit down and be able to put a lot of things together and put it in a beautiful format and to be proud of it. So it wasn't a rush. I hope eventually I will be working on that. But I believe this might be the best format for me to be able to share my thoughts and what I have found about the company. A general overview of what the report was saying is that Blink, which is today worth over $1 billion, has the telltale signs of a company which is there to sell stock. The company hasn't grown anything in regards to its revenue model. Now, revenue model is an important point, which we mentioned in the report, because their revenue model is totally dependent on usage. The hardware sales, the fact that Blink has a contract with someone to be able to sell them some hardware, Blink is not making much money off that. Blink actually does not have any type of manufacturing facility of its own, and it does not have any intellectual property. It is not creating the system. It is created by a company in Taiwan called Lite-On, which Lite-On creates their charging systems, and they might tweak a little bit for each customer that they have, but more or less is under a structure of, you could put your stamp on our product, but the product is definitely the way we're making it. So Blink is not making much money off the installation of anything. They say in their reports that it costs about $2,500, level 2 charger. And with installation and everything, I imagine it's close to 4K or 5. The grants that they're getting that covered are definitely not above that. And I imagine that the hardware sales and the company itself states that many times, that that's not really where they're making their money. Money would be based on usage. Now, usage has been down, and it is still unbelievably below $1 million. So a company which is valued at $1 billion with usage being below 1 million is definitely something to raise someone's eyebrow. However, that doesn't really show anything about the company. Could be that investors have extremely high confidence in the company, and that can be as a result of the company being in a very hot, as they call it, sector, which is growing, which is exactly where Blink is. However, I don't see that to be the case, because throughout its history since 2009, Blink has actually provided many, many misleading statements. And what I mean by that is that the company has not been forward with shareholders, and there have been in the SEC filings many type of disclosures which show that the company definitely was not there about running their business, was more about selling stock. The company does agree that most of its funding is only through share sales, and it has made quite a sum, while at the same time, despite the company not really making money, the company compensation rate is extremely high. So in the report, we outline the misleading statements and how many of the charging stations are possible not to be working, because we said that most of Blink's charging stations today, and I don't like the word station as I mentioned in the report, because station refers to location. It's more actual charging ports, meaning each individual hook, if you want to say that. And those are still from Ecotality, which is a company which went bankrupt and recalled before it went bankrupt 12,000 charging stations. So Blink definitely, I haven't seen any type of new statement about installing 12,000 new stations or anything like that. Blink definitely to claim that it has close to, I think today it claims close to 15,000 stations on its network would be without really disclosing how much money it did to upgrade those charging ports, which the company had purchased from Ecotality, would be definitely a reason to question as to how they plan on having usage based on items and charging stations which don't function at all. And that's really why the focus on hardware sales by the company over the years seems to be one of the reasons why how it is misleading investors, and it definitely is a tactic towards misleading investors, as since most you don't have a normal infrastructure, so the only way to create this illusion that you're growing is by adding more and more locations, but those locations you're not really making money on either until there is usage. Now, a brief overview of what Blink was. So Blink used to be called New Image Concepts. New Image Concepts was owned by a woman named Flores, Beline Flores. It says here that it was a company in California which was creating some type of service to people having events, to be a consultant, and the company was actually a public company. And I'm not sure why it was or anything like that, but that's my feeling as to why the company was purchased, not really purchased, but converted into Car Charging Group. Now, Car Charging Group was initially started off by a person named Andy Kennard, who still remains there. And he was the president. He has a history in electricity, as you see here. And the company started off with their original business models, as you see today. Here you see Andrew Kennard, president director. You don't see any mention of Michael D. Farkas, who is the current CEO, which would seem to be the case in general. Now, as mentioned earlier, the company spoke many times about how they aren't manufacturing any type of system, and this is shown here in the SEC filing that when it refers to competition, it says because Car Charging Group is in the business of securing and owning car charging stations, not developing the technology behind the chargers, competitors they become partners if and when Car Charging seeks new chargers. So they consider this really to be its advantage over others that it could use the other different types of systems. But you see here clearly that it's not about hardware sales for the company, which is what PowerPoint does, rather based on usage. And here you see it says here that this is definitely how the company operates till today. Is the company will claim that by installing one charging station with one company in a garage case is the potential future to be able to sign with the other cases. Now, as outlined in the report, the growth in the company since Ecotality purchases is practically the same. And that is something which the company does not focus on, and the company has yet to really clarify as to how it's growing its business. And I'm not sure why no analysts have asked them or reporters, but you see here that it's this theme that the company really sells the boat as to if signing a deal in one location. Every single report I've seen since then, the company would mention we installed one station here, and you should know this company has about 1,000 locations and sell to them as that. So I just want to focus right now on Michael D. Farkas, who really is the main player today in the company. He's the CEO and majority owner. He really has a history on Wall Street, as he says himself. As an investor, he owned a place called, he actually was a financial advisor, which he withdrew in 2007. And he owns Atlas Equity Group and has a less than 5% interest in Ardor Capital. He's definitely into the financing sector. Now, I just want to, as a preface, which will explain why we're speaking about this, is how many companies Michael D. Farkas has registered him under his name. Farkas has registered under a company named WiseDriver. WiseDriver is a company which seemingly has no type of revenue at all. He has a company named 350 Holdings, a company named Wellhound, which was registered and had to do with Warrior Equity Partners. He had iIncubator. He had many, many other types of companies. He has a company today called Balance Labs. Balance Lab is some sort of investing thing. Now, most of these companies are actually inactive today. Some companies were from the early 2000s, which is something which Farkas was involved in, and he actually got into trouble. As seen here, that investors sued Farkas in connection with Skyway. Skyway was some kind of company which claimed to be involved with aircraft, and Farkas was an investor, and he definitely was a majority shareholder, and seemed to be, there weren't many other people at Skyway. I would say this is very similar to how Blink Charging was at the beginning. As you can see here, Farkas had a really large position of Blink Charging at the beginning. Through his Blink Holdings, which is another one of his companies, he has 31%. He owns 93 million shares. 58% of the company is a pretty nice amount to own, and with the Blink Holdings, which he is sole owner on, it would seem that it is very similar to how Skyway was in regards to him owning the company and being there. However, they charged the executives of Skyway, and Farkas was not basically brought down in any sort of way. It definitely put a blemish on his history, but there is no real charges against Farkas. Now, so this other company which owns Balance Labs is a company which claims to be considering itself a consultant, which we will mention later, about how the company has agreements with companies which Farkas is basically sole owner, or at least has majority ownership. And as he says in the SEC filings, that he really has the decisions about who gets paid and what the agreements are. So Balance Labs has some kind of consulting agreement with Blink. But if one is to take a look at many of these companies, there seems to be no real presence of a company. Bing Holdings, for example, is some kind of media company with regards to marijuana, has no real revenue either. Balance Agrotech, I'm not sure what it is. The website that it links to is not even paid for, and it just has a name here, Balance Agrotech, with the same address as usual by Farkas of his company. So Balance Lab, I'm not sure really what it's being used for. I could have my suspicions, which I will mention later. So that is all for now. We'll get back later, but this is just to give a little bit of introduction to what's going to be.